What if healing wasn't just about pills and surgeries? What if it went deeper, like to the soul? That's the world we're exploring today, shamanism. And to guide us, we have shaman Jon Rasmussen.
John's really good at explaining it, like, even if you've never heard of shamanism.
Yeah, exactly. We're looking at a video of Jon, and he's super open, sharing stories,
Yeah.
about his training, his lineage, the whole thing. But first, what is a shaman?
You can think of them as a bridge between the physical world and the spiritual. Traditionally, they're healers, problem solvers.
It sounds a bit like a superpower. And Jon's childhood stories, they kind of hint at that. He talks about having these like out-of-body experiences as a kid, even watching his mom and her friends from outside his body.
It seems like these shamanic abilities, they start early, they're hypersensitive, picking up on energies most people don't even notice.
Like it's not just learned, almost like they're born with it. And Jon's journey, full of synchronicities, those coincidences that feel like, the universe is nudging you.
Yeah, and it also shows how important lineage is. He trained with the Caro, a Peruvian tribe. They've kept this ancient shamanic knowledge alive for centuries.
And, the Caro prophecy blows my mind every time. They predicted the conquistadors centuries before they showed up. Skins of steel, thunder sticks.
It wasn't just about predicting the future, though. It was more about how beliefs and myths can shape history.
And they even saw a shift coming back to a more balanced, feminine way of thinking.
Like what a lot of people are talking about today.
Exactly. So we have this backdrop of like ancient traditions, prophecies. But how does it connect to what Jon actually does?
Well, he starts with this idea, we're not just physical. We have these 4 layers.
Okay, break it down for us. 4 layers.
He calls them life, psychospiritual, mythic, and soul. The life layer, that's the most obvious, right? It's our everyday stuff. Relationships, health, work.
The one we're most aware of. What about psychospiritual?
That one goes deeper. It's thoughts, beliefs, emotions.
So is how we react to that life layer.
Yeah, and it's where we try to manifest things, affirmations, visualization, all that.
But then things get interesting. The mythic layer. This is where shamanism gets different.
Yeah, the mythic layer is fascinating. It's all about archetypes, stories, symbols, rituals, those narratives that shape our beliefs without us even realizing it.
Jon compared it to marketing. That was brilliant. Both use the mythic. Like a brand logo can make you feel something, right? Influence your choices.
Yeah.
Shamanism uses those same tools, but for healing and transformation.
Exactly. Think about how brands tell stories to create a certain image. Shamanism does the same, but it's about changing your inner world.
So we're buying into a new story about ourselves.
That's it. And the tools they use are very sensory. Rattles, drums, chanting, objects. They bypass your thinking mind,
I can see why some people might find that a bit woo-woo. But when you think about it, we're already bombarded by messages and symbols, right? Shaping our subconscious.
Absolutely.
Might as well use them for good.
Yeah.
And then there's the deepest layer, the soul.
That's the core, who you really are, beyond the body, beyond the stories.
The source of our true self, our purpose.
Yeah, and that's where soul retrieval comes in. Jon says when we go through trauma, a part of our soul can actually hide.
Wow.
Like it's trying to protect itself.
That explains why after trauma you can feel, not hold.
And in soul retrieval, he goes and finds those lost parts, brings them back.
So it's more than just remembering the trauma. It's about getting that energy back.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating is he also talks about changing contracts. What does he mean by that?
Well, remember we talked about how trauma can lead to these limiting beliefs? These contracts are those beliefs. The agreements we make with ourselves, with the universe, about how things work.
And they can really hold us back.
Right. They become self-fulfilling prophecies.
So in soul retrieval, he helps rewrite those contracts.
Exactly.
So it's a total approach, right? Physical, emotional, spiritual.
That's shamanism. And Jon emphasizes it's not a one-time thing. There's integration work afterward.
To make it stick.
He uses things like destiny retrieval, shadow work.
We'll dive into those later.
Yeah.
But first, what actually happens in a session? What does it look like? Okay, so picture this. A session with Jon. What happens first?
You lie down, and then he places these stones on your body.
Stones.
Mesa stones. They're special. They've been passed down through his lineage, energetically activated,
Oh, wow.
He even calls them stone people, part of his healing team.
That's wild. So they have a specific energy.
Exactly. They work with your energy field to clear out any heavy stuff that's stuck. The Kishua word for it is miki. It means to combust or digest.
A deep cleanse.
Yeah, but gentle. He compares it to removing mud from a glass. carefully so you don't stir it up.
That's good to hear. I think a lot of people worry about, like, reliving trauma.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be like that. And here's another thing. He doesn't just work with your energy.
What do you mean?
Ancestral influences.
Hold on. Our ancestors can affect us today.
According to shamanism, yeah. Sometimes we're still connected energetically, especially if there wasn't a proper death rite,
A death, right?
like a ritual when someone dies to, sever those energetic ties.
We don't really have those anymore.
Nope. So we end up carrying this invisible baggage.
From our family history?
Exactly. And it can show up in like relationship patterns, health issues.
So he helps to cut those cords.
Partly. He also does extractions, removing energetic intrusions, things that are causing problems.
Like what?
He mentions spears, nooses, symbolic objects representing past traumas.
Wait, how can a spear be, like, in your energy field?
It's not a literal spear, more like an imprint, a memory with a certain vibration. He sees them during the sessions, really vividly, and they can come from past lives, too.
Wow. So he's removing these blockages to clear the way for healing.
Right. And then there's soul retrieval.
Yeah, tell us more about that. How does it actually work?
So when we experience trauma, especially if we feel like a victim, a part of our soul hides.
Like in any kind of trauma?
Big or small, it could be like a major life event.
Yeah.
Or being bullied as a kid.
Anything where we felt powerless.
Yeah. And Jon says when we lose that piece of our soul, we lose the passion, the gifts that came with it.
That makes sense. You feel numb, disconnected.
And during soul retrieval, he goes to find those lost parts. He uses breath work, drumming, to get into that altered state.
So it's not just watching. He's actively doing something.
He's bringing those parts back. And here's the cool part. He talks about changing contracts.
Contracts. Like those limiting beliefs we talked about.
Those are the contracts, agreements about how the world works. For example, if someone was abandoned as a child, they might have a contract that says, I'm not worthy of love.
And that belief shapes their reality.
Exactly. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So Jon helps to change those contracts.
During the soul retrieval, yeah.
Wow. So it's not just about energy. It's about beliefs.
It's about changing your whole story.
Yeah.
And it goes even further. He also does destiny retrieval.
Destiny retrieval.
He uses this left eye tracking technique to page through your potential futures, he says.
What?
He finds the most likely timeline based on your energy, your past, and then he works with you to figure out your goals.
So it's like aligning with your desired future.
Yeah, and once he's found that timeline, he brings it into your energy field.
Like downloading the blueprint.
Exactly. And finally, there's shadow work.
Shadow work. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
But how does it work in shamanism?
It's about facing the parts of ourselves we've rejected. The negative stuff.
Our dark side.
Yeah, but Jon says everyone has a shadow, and those parts actually hold a lot of power.
So it's about accepting our imperfections.
More than that, it's about understanding them, integrating them. He says the things that trigger us the most, they're often reflections of our own shadow.
Like if someone's super judgmental,
They might have a shadow aspect of self-criticism.
we project our inner conflicts outward.
Exactly. And as long as we judge those parts of ourselves, we'll keep seeing them in other people.
So it's not about liking those negative behaviors. It's about understanding where they come from.
And having compassion for ourselves. He says you can't really do shadow work until you've cleared out the past through things like soul retrieval.
Like you need a strong foundation. A self-acceptance.
Exactly. And as we embrace our shadow, we stop projecting it, and the triggers start to fade away.
We've addressed the root cause.
He even tells a story about how he used to have trouble with bosses until he did his own shadow work and realized he had a controlling side.
Oh,
And then the difficult bosses disappeared.
that's powerful.
It shows how shadow work can really change things, but it's an ongoing process, he says.
You never fully conquer your shadow.
Right. There's always more to learn. And the amazing thing is, he does all of this in one session.
All of it.
Soul retrieval, destiny retrieval, shadow work. He used to do them separately. But he found it's more effective this way.
I see.
He compares it to a surgeon operating in a clean room.
To avoid contamination.
Exact.
But how does he create that sacred space, especially if he's working remotely?
He uses plant medicines like cedar, sage, frankincense, myrrh,
To clear the energy.
and breath work too.
So he's using the power of plants
Yeah.
and the breath.
Yeah, to create that container for healing. And he says during the session itself, there's nothing the client needs to do.
Right.
He says he'll handle the heavy lifting energetically.
You're telling me I could be like making a grocery list in my head
Uh-huh.
and still get the benefits.
That's what he says. He's like, I'll do the heavy lifting, energetically speaking.
I love that. But do people ever feel anything during this session?
Sometimes. Physical sensations, emotions, as that energy is released.
So it's not always like super blissful.
Not necessarily, but he tells everyone, you're in control, you can stop anytime.
If he gets too intense,
Yeah.
it sounds like he's very respectful of like the client's process.
Oh, yeah. He's clear he's not the boss. The client is.
That's good.
He's more like a guide, a facilitator.
Helping you tap into your own healing.
Exactly. And he also says shamanism works best when it's combined with other things.
Like therapy, you mean?
Therapy, coaching, lifestyle changes.
So it's not a replacement, more like an addition.
A complement. He encourages people to keep doing whatever works for them.
Makes sense. And he's really focused on, you know, improving life here on Earth. He even shared this greeting from the Karo tribe, I aren't you, which means, how does your village live within you?
That's beautiful.
It really highlights that connection we have to each other, to the world. It's powerful stuff. I mean, Jon's work really shows how shamanism, this ancient practice, it's so relevant today.
Totally agree. So big picture, what do you think are the key takeaways here?
Well, for me, it's that healing isn't just physical. It's emotional, mental, spiritual. You have to address it all.
Like Jon shows, it's all interconnected, and he really emphasizes you're not a victim.
Of your past, your ancestry. You can change things.
It's empowering.
And he's not saying become this perfect enlightened being. It's more about like embracing your wholeness, even the shadow stuff.
And learning to live with more awareness, more compassion, more joy.
He even said, you know, if you're trying to be a saint, you're going to attract a lot of bad bosses.
Right.
And that mythic layer, so important. We're all influenced by stories, symbols, whether we realize it or not.
And once we see that, we can choose different stories, ones that empower us.
And Jon encourages us to be intentional about the symbols we surround ourselves with. Create altars, work with animal totems, use art, music, poetry.
It's all about tapping into that deeper part of ourselves.
Yeah, it's not about rejecting the modern world. It's about integrating ancient wisdom into it.
Exactly. Jon's a great example of that.
This deep dive into shamanism has been incredible. It reminds us that healing is a journey, and we all have the power to heal.
So as you go about your day, ask yourself, what's holding you back? What have you pushed away? Maybe exploring those deeper layers will unlock a whole new level of healing and growth.